By being intentional and choosing where we're leaning into in our lives, we are less susceptible to dealing with burnout at work because we're choosing to be intentional about where we focus, right? We're making that choice.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Welcome to the show, friend. I have a new best friend with me, and Michelle is here to talk to us about burnout. And not just burnout, but workplace burnout. Do you ever just find like your job is taking over your life? I don't know how many times I told my husband, just one more project, and then I'll be able to not work so many hours. Just one more of this, and I won't have to work so much. And it was always just one more. And because we stand up and we don't say stop, they just kept getting poured on and poured onto us. And how do we find that balance of being a really good employee and a really good person that takes care of ourselves? Because I put myself on the back burner for years, and I know that you do too. So how do we take that priority and move you back up front? All the information about Michelle's in the show notes. So Michelle, help me find that balance of when can I say no and quit doing so much?
It's such a good question, Lara Jane. It's a great one to start with because so many of us have a hard time saying no, right? We as women are here as nurturers. We are serving our families. We are showing up at work for our colleagues, for our bosses. And so rarely do we want to let people down, right? So rarely do we want to be the person that says, no, I can't do that, or I don't have capacity for that. And saying no is actually a really important skill for us to own and to hone. I talk with my clients a lot about saying an aligned no, right? We talk a lot about aligned yeses, right? Something that feels good, aligned with our values, is bringing us towards our goals. But an aligned no, what is that? Well, it's something that is also in alignment with your values, right? By saying no to something that is not going to support us, not going to serve us, we're making space for something that does. So at work, when do we say no? We have to say no when it's going to bring us out of alignment with our priorities, with our goals, with our values. We have to say no if it's going to take away from our self-care, from our abilities to care for our families and our homes and our lives. And we have to have those boundaries and know where they are.
It is such a good concept. And definitely one we can get better at. But sometimes I just feel like there's not an option. You know, a CEO comes to your desk at the last minute and go, board meetings tomorrow. We need to have this done and ready by tomorrow. Okay, I have a boundary that I must go home by 5. I have a boundary that whatever it is that you've set. Now, how do you respond?
Yeah.
So how do I do that? No.
Yeah. So let's stay in that exact example and then we'll zoom out. How do you do it in that moment? Well, you have to make a trade-off decision, right? What am I giving up by saying yes here? What am I prioritizing by saying no? Am I giving up the ability to go to a really important event with my family? Am I giving up something that's one of my top priorities in my life? Well, maybe I can't say yes then. Maybe I need to really hold on to this no here. Or is tonight, just a quiet night where I may have more capacity and may be able to find coverage for what I was meant to go to. In that moment, we have to make that decision. I really love, there's a tool that I learned through Susie Welch, who is NYU professor. And she talks about the 10-10-10 rule, right? When you make a decision, how will you feel in 10 seconds, 10 months, and 10 years? Right? So if you say yes to that request from your boss, what will it feel like 10 seconds from now when you're in that place of doing the work? 10 months from now, when your life has gone on, and 10 years from now, right? And it helps you think through, is this something that is going to make a big difference in the long term? Is it something that I can deal with in the short term, is not going to take me off track? Or is it something that's actually going to make a significant difference in my future that I need to hold true on? And so I really like that framework when you're faced with one of those challenging decisions in the moment.
So in 10 minutes, if I said yes, I would be beating myself up that I just let my boundaries slip again. And in 10 minutes, if I had said no, I'd be worried about my job. So that's my 10 minutes. Those are the two areas. But I don't think in 10 months or 10 years, I would care either way. So how do I pick the decision if that's the case?
Well, I think in some cases, there may be a future where 10 months you will care, right? Let's say you're going through a really challenging time in your marriage and you had a date scheduled that night to work on your romance. Well, that is going to make a big difference 10 months from now, right? Like you may actually throw your marriage off course and have an outcome that you're not happy with 10 months from now. 10 years from now, are you still with your partner? Right? That one decision might not have broken things, but multiple ones like that over time may. However, if everything in your life is going rather swimmingly and it's just perhaps missing one game or perhaps missing one event, then yeah, maybe it's easy. It doesn't matter in 10 months, doesn't matter in 10 years. I'm going to stay right now because I'm going to value the long-term growth at my company. So I think I'm going to now zoom out to help bring perspective to your question. We have to have a bigger a zoomed out perspective of our lives, right? What else is going on here? What else am I balancing? We're all balancing so much, right? When you look at your wheel of life, which we can talk about, there's a lot of slices there. There's our relationships, there's our children, there's our friends and family, our own health, our finances. What's going on in the other categories right now that this decision may impact, right? Am I in a phase where I'm focusing on career? Am I in a phase where my company is going through a lot and I've signed up to work a little bit extra? Or is this perhaps a time for me to say, I'm not going to give the extra mile at work because I'm leaning in elsewhere? So that perspective, I think, is really important.
I like that perspective. That's way cool. And how do we find those perspectives? Is it just a week or two of self-reflection and really sitting down and saying, hey, I have a mission plan of my own? How do we go about that?
Oh, I love this question. This is core to how I work with women, especially women who are balancing so much and have such full lives. Once a year, we go through a really robust personal strategic planning process. We look at our values. We look at an assessment of how we're doing across all those areas of our life that I just mentioned. We then choose areas to focus on for the year, and then we build out a plan, right? So now we kind of have a view, right? And then how often do we come back to that? Well, you don't need a week of reflection every few months. Just a few moments to sit back, maybe it's an hour where you sit back and you look at what were the goals I set out for myself? If I was deciding to focus on, career and health, have I done that? Have I made progress that I wanted? And if not, how can I adjust? And so on a quarterly basis, we come back. I actually just did this earlier today with a group of women, and it's just a beautiful way to check in with ourselves. One tool that I'll share that anyone can pick up, you can just Google this very easily, is the life wheel. If you haven't done a life wheel before, Google this. It's literally a circle and it has 8 slices, and each slice is a different area of your life. And you just rate it. How am I doing on a scale from 0 to 10, unsatisfied to completely satisfied in each area? There's no ideal outcome. It's just a view of where you are today. And then you can reflect and look at that and say, all right, based on where I am today, what do I want to change? That exercise takes 5 minutes. So you can do that at any point, and I think quarterly is a really great cadence for it.
So looking at the life wheel, and have my priorities changed? Or where am I spending time that I don't need to? Or am I missing time? And just that questioning and looking at, here's a start. So many of us, we just don't know how to start. Like, give me a place to start. And this is a good starting point. And it's like, okay, I have these areas. If you want to add one, add one. If you want to take one away, take one away. We all have our own things that are on there. But then you can at least go, what's important to me? Yeah. And I like that, what's important. And then I have a scale. Where does this new decision fit? And am I going off balance? Am I spending too much time with family? Because they're my top priority, but do they really need that time? Or income's my top priority. So my job has to take precedence. What is it for you? And you get to pick. I don't have to tell you. I like that.
And as you said, it will change. And that's why we revisit this every once in a while, because our priorities change, our situations change. And I developed this whole mindset after getting really frustrated with the idea of work-life balance. Like, what is that? Who can actually achieve work-life balance? It's, to me, just like never worked. And so I said, there has to be a better way. And this life wheel allows me to look at balance differently. I look at balance over a lifetime, which means I need to understand where I am today and where I want to go. And based on those two data points, I then think, well, where do I need to focus to bring myself closer to those goals based on where I am today? And that allows us to lean into work at certain times, or lean into the relationship, lean into, family matters or health, whatever it may be. But we have that ability to choose. And it's that power of choice that allows us to be present when we do choose to be somewhere, right? So if we've chosen that career is our focus right now, we're less susceptible to burnout by being intentional and choosing where we're leaning into in our lives. We are less susceptible to dealing with burnout at work because we're choosing to be intentional about where we focus, right? We're making that choice. Right now, my focus is income. And so I am choosing to focus on this area. And therefore, I want to be here. I've made that choice, right? It's the power of choice that puts us in control of our lives and control of time, which is something that often feels like it's slipping away through our fingertips. If we're choosing that this is our time to focus on our children, well, that will make us feel less guilty when we choose to go to leave work early to be at our child's event, right? It just makes it more, we're more in control. And that's actually a really important factor when you talk about burnout.
And not flying blind. So much of us, we haven't taken the moment to really decide what's important. And you just run from task to task to task. And I did that. And oh my gosh, I still have all this to do. And I don't know when I'm going to do it. But when you set those priorities, like, oh, I'm running too far with this. Yes. I'm going to make a change. I like that.
Absolutely.
How about we take a quick break, get a word from our sponsor. And when we come back in, let's kind of dive into that. We talked balance. And maybe balance isn't what we want. Maybe we want integration. Maybe we want separation. Maybe we want, how do we make it what we really want? So we'll be right back. Hey, since I rarely have openings in my coaching schedule, I have a new resource out there on my website. It is called the BFF Coaching Network. And I have offered a spot there for any coach that has been on the show to list the coaching. You can go out there, you can listen to their episodes, you can feel a little bit about them, and then choose a coach that will work for you. So LaraJaneLayton.com, the BFF Coaching Network. Okay, Michelle, let's talk about this word balance, because it always gives me that there's only two choices. When you're looking at that balance thing that kind of hangs up there and you put the gold on this side and that's my vision of balance. Right. It's equal. But maybe I really am comfortable with 75% work and 25% home life. Or maybe I'm really comfortable with doing some work tasks while I'm doing home tasks. My husband's the master at this. It's like, oh, while we're out, do you mind if we swing by a job? I just need to check something. It's like, at first it bugged me, but I realized when you're married to a self-employed person, there are some things that you can do along the way that you don't have to go, well, go ahead and go do that for an hour and I won't even have to spend any time with you. So he's really good about integrating some of the things together, which I think some of us think may not be kind. And at first I thought it wasn't kind, but now I think he's a genius because he gets those things done and makes a good use of his time. So how can we figure out some integration? Maybe it is that I need to go home. I got to watch the football game. I committed to it. I'm supposed to bring the refreshments after I could log in and get this done. Or integration. You could do, so what is it? And it really is finding that creative node of how can I make this work?
Yeah. Well, I love that you use the word creative there at the end, because when we talk about creativity, we're talking about our intuition also. And that means that we're doing something that's aligned with who we are, coming from our truest self. And the first step that I always go through whenever I'm working with someone who's facing burnout is getting clear on her values, right? What are your core values? Not the ones that you were told to have, not the ones that others think you should have, but what are the ones that are core to who you truly are? Once you get clear on those values, then we can creatively redefine what balance means for us, right? We can creatively redefine what integration looks like for us. And that's kind of the fun part, because we're given this expectation of what life is meant to look like and how we're meant to live it and how we're meant to balance, those two things, work and life. But like you said, we're multidimensional. This is not a black or white question. We have so much on offer, so much that we're managing in life. And so, how do we actually create a world that we love living, a life that excites us? And those are the questions that I love working through with women, because when you get down to it and when we give ourselves permission to be creative in how we create our lives, we end up really happy. We end up feeling this ownership over what we've built. We end up feeling this pride. And there's, small little examples. Like, I love the example you gave. Like, okay, well, for me, it means leaving work at maybe 4, going to the event, and then logging on for 2 hours. Guess what? Those 2 hours might feel really good because you've done everything else in your day that you wanted to do. You're back home, you're in your space, you're focused. Another example of how women create their own existence is saying, all right, I'm going to have one night a week where we do a unique family dinner where everyone's involved, right? Maybe her value is, family creation. Maybe it's creativity. Maybe it's togetherness, right? If those are your values, then how can you live that in your life? Well, having a night where everyone's cooking together in the kitchen, that brings all of those values together. And so it, creates this beautiful moment where, yeah, of course we have to cook dinner, right? The family needs to be fed. And also we're doing it together as a family. We're doing something creative together. So, anything like that. I mean, other things that I love, I've had clients carve out a sacred hour each week where under no circumstance is anyone allowed to bother her, right? We have our emergency only cases, but that hour, sometimes I call it your feminine hour, where you just do something for you. Maybe it's a bath, maybe it's a walk, maybe it's calling a friend where no one can interrupt you, but having that sacred time that's just yours, right? So we get to create our own reality. And when we put some intention behind it, it can really be a fun process.
That sounds fun, because a sacred hour, I can just imagine all the times I would be second guessing whether I was going to, do I move my sacred hour? But it's so important to have something to look forward to. So much of our time is built on a task list that we don't leave anything to look forward to. Or it might be just a date night that it might not even be your own self, but something for you. Might be going out to drinks with the friends, getting away. But what is that for you only hour? If you help someone else, great. But how could we just put that in the calendar and not move it?
Yes. Protect it at all costs.
Yeah. And all of our lifestyles are different. It might be great for one person Sunday morning. Another person was like, all the kids are out of the house Wednesday afternoon. It's finding that moment that works for you. And how do you just say, this is mine?
Yeah. I have a great example, actually. This is of a CEO of a large company. I forget the company, but it's definitely Fortune 200. He said that every single Wednesday night in his entire career, he left at 5 p.m., no matter what was going on, to have dinner with his wife. Every single Wednesday. What was that? That was his sacred time. That was him placing a boundary. And what happened? Did the company, suffer because he wasn't there at 5:01? No. The company fell in line. The people that worked for him understood, if I need him, he's not available during those hours. So I need to plan accordingly. I need to show up based on that boundary. And the people around him really respected that. I mean, it's a story that's been inspiring so many people to put their own boundaries into place. And it just is so beautiful because he talks about how his wife was such a rock for him during that really challenging career. And this is, I just think, a great example, right? Sometimes we get nervous to say, no, I can't stay past 5. Well, here's a great example where you need to hold true to that. It can really impact your relationship over your lifetime. It could impact how others support and show up for you at your job, which I love. I think a lot of times we're worried when we set boundaries that people will be offended or won't play along or whatever it may be. But a lot of times people are like, that's interesting. I'm going to try that. Right. And they show up differently for it. So I just love sharing that example.
It's a great example because I've had colleagues that you could count on. There was no way they were here this day of the, it was a certain day and a certain time. And you just knew, it could be religious preferences. It could be, things that they do for that, but you never fought it.
Right.
It's like, George isn't going to be able to be here. Who can we assign this to?
Right. The creativity comes out. How can we still get the task done? We'll always find a way to get it done.
Yeah. Or find a way to move the dang deadline. It's like, do you really need it tomorrow morning?
Need it. It also helps us plan better, right? So if we know every Wednesday at 5 we're out the door, we're not going to wait till 4:30 Wednesday afternoon to start a big project, right? We're going to plan around that. And it's easier, I find, to have it be consistent in your diary consistently, because is it easier to leave every Wednesday at 5 or maybe one Wednesday every once in a while when you get around to planning that date? It's easier every Wednesday when it's part of your ritual.
Definitely, for sure. Like a very important part. So I really like that as a good challenge for this week is if you don't have a sacred hour, find one and put it in. And if you can only start monthly, it's better than never. Find it as soon as possible on your calendar, block it and make sure. Because I know it's like, if I book this person 3 months in advance, I know I can find a spot. So if you're that person that everybody's trying to figure out how to find a spot on your calendar, hurry and block them as soon as you can. This is my sacred hour.
I love it. Yes.
So, Michelle, how about sharing a little bit about you and how to get a hold of you and what brings you that joy every day?
Sure. Well, my name is Michelle Casazza. I am a intuitive business and life coach for women, and I empower corporate women to build lives that they love and that are aligned with who they truly are. And you can get in touch with me at Join Matria on Instagram and on my website, joinmatria.com. Would love to hear from you if this resonates and if I can serve you. How do I find joy every day? I live in a space of gratitude. Gratitude has been an amazing tool for me. I went through a period where I was depressed after dealing with burnout in corporate. And what helped me through that period was a gratitude practice. And at the time, it started really, really kind of sad and basic, where the only things I could, put on that list were like, I'm grateful I woke up this morning, and I'm grateful that I am taking breaths. I'm grateful I have clean water. And as I continued the practice and continued on my journey, I was finding more and more to be grateful for. And today, where I'm at, I just was talking with some women this morning about the idea of a gratitude shower. I feel like I am being showered in gratitude constantly. I'm just so grateful for where I live, for the work that I do, to be able to serve women with my experience, to have the communities that I have that I'm a part of. All of these things were things that I yearned for years ago that I now have. And so every day I wake up, the first thing I say is, thank God I'm alive. Like, I just start there. And in my shower, I thank the water for all the things I have in my life. I use that moment. That's kind of my sacred moment every day of speaking out gratitudes and really just grounding myself in the present moment and in this phase of life, which, whatever phase you're in, being grateful to be there is so crucial. So it's gratitude that gives me joy.
I do like the idea of finding that one thing we do every day and repurposing it and find a way to turn it into that gratitude or that self-reflection or that learning period, that I never have time to learn. And it's, how could I put on an audiobook, or how could I, what are these things I could do to take advantage of the same thing I do every day while I'm brushing my teeth and counting to 2 minutes, or, whatever it is.
Yeah. I was talking with a woman today who, again, same idea of balancing time. And I share with her the idea of speaking your gratitudes in the shower. She said, I always use my shower time as like my productive time, right? Like, what's on my to-do list? What's on the grocery list? Where do I have to take the kids? And she said, I'm never just present in that shower. I never just take that moment. And so I said, well, think about it this way. You can both be productive and allow it to be a moment for you. If you're using that as a moment to say, thank you for what you have. Thank you for what I will have. Thank you for what I'm calling in. So you're both being grateful for the present and, calling in what you want for the future. So
a gratitude shower.
Gratitude shower.
I tell people to shower with intention, add the scents, add the whatever. So now it will be gratitude intention. I love it, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining me. You have been wonderful to chat with. And friend Michelle and I are not medical or mental licensed professionals, just people who have experienced some life and want to help you have the best life you can have. So stay tuned for the next episode. And if you have a chance, go leave us an honest review on iTunes. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss the next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.